The Pemi Loop is one of the most famous hikes in the Northeast. Its stunning views, daunting mileage, and abundance of peaks makes it an extremely popular destination. The amount of mountains that can be climbed in one hike is what attracted me to the Pemi Loop. I first heard of the loop when I asked a friend where he recommends I go backpacking, and he brought up the Pemi Loop. After researching it a little bit, I realized that some people did it in a day, and I became determined to do that instead. A few days later, I found myself at the Lincoln Woods Trailhead in Lincoln, New Hampshire, ready to embark on a 35-mile journey. I woke up at 1:30 in the morning, quickly got dressed, brushed my teeth, ate breakfast, and left. I then started the 2-hour drive to the trailhead, eagerly anticipating the long day I had ahead of me. I got to the trailhead around 4:15, paid the $5 fee, and started jogging under the light of my headlamp. The first couple miles were on a flat road, lined with railroad ties, but it soon became a fairly steep climb up Mount Flume, the first mountain on the Pemi Loop. On the way to the summit, I stepped off to an overlook where I caught the sun rising above the mountains. It was a beautiful view to start the hike off with. I made it to the summit of Mount Flume, took a short break, and then continued on my way to Liberty. Half an hour later, I made it to Liberty. After summiting Liberty, I continued on to Lincoln. I passed over Lincoln without realizing it was the peak and kept on going to Lafayette. It was a little after I passed Lincoln that a fog rolled in and blanketed the mountains for the rest of the day, and I started to get intense leg cramps. While sitting on rocks near the peak of Lafayette waiting for my cramps to let up, I realized I had to change my plans. I was running out of water, which I needed to stop the cramps, and Garfield, where I was planning on getting my water near, was still over 5 miles away. I finally made it to the top of Lafayette, the tallest mountain on the Pemi Loop, and started hiking down to the Greenleaf Hut. I refilled my water there, bought some electrolyte mix to make the cramps go away, and started going back up the same way to Lafayette. I made it back and started on the way to Garfield. My leg cramps were gone, but I was slightly demoralized by the detour and the lack of views due to the fog. The way to Garfield was long, with quite a bit of elevation change, but it didn't take too long to get there. I took a short break and kept on moving to the Galehead Hut. I refilled my water there, dropped my backpack, and quickly bagged Galehead, which is only a 0.3 mile spur off the trail. I then started the somewhat infamous ascent up South Twin, which was less bad than I was told it would be. I had a quick snack, and because I was making decent time, I decided to bag North Twin. I trekked 1 mile to North Twin, 1 mile back, and continued along the loop. The stretch from South Twin to Mount Bond is relatively flat and exposed, which was noticeable as the wind was starting to pick up. I decided to take the half-mile spur trail to summit West Bond before summiting Mount Bond. The fog was clearing up a little bit on top of West Bond, but I still couldn't see the peaks of the surrounding mountains. I doubled back to the trail and ascended Mount Bond, the second to last mountain on the loop. I kept moving to Bond Cliff, enjoyed my final mountaintop view, and began the descent. After descending Bond Cliff, it's relatively flat for the last 5 or so miles. I jogged this stretch and made it back to the same suspension bridge I crossed at 4:30 that morning, at around 6:30 p.m. My legs were more tired than they have ever been, but I was extremely happy with what I had accomplished. The hike ended up being 35 miles long, with a total vertical of 11,000 feet, and it took me 15 hours to hike the whole thing. I definitely would recommend the Pemi Loop to anyone. It's very difficult to do in a day, but is commonly backpacked, which makes it much more achievable for most people. It's a beautiful trail with some of the best views I have ever had hiking. And if for whatever reason you can't do the Pemi Loop, I encourage you to go outside and enjoy the beauty of creation while maybe challenging yourself to.